Alright everybody, welcome back into the channel. It's Reid, and today I wanted to do something a little different with you guys. I wanted to give you guys a quick tutorial on how I start building a team and how I build a team in general in Madden 19. And I want to try and do this as quick as possible. Get you guys it's going to be a decently long video, but it's not going to be like you have to watch me do a whole franchise to see how I build a team or anything like that, or watch a whole bunch of different videos. I want this to be in one place. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump into a franchise. I'm going to just hit a cloud franchise because that's what everybody plays on. You're going to be playing with your friends, so we're going to do a cloud franchise. And then I'm going to start a new franchise, and we're just going to use the real life. Actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll just use the real life roster. And we'll go ahead and we'll just start in, for example, regular season week 1. And that's fine. We'll go ahead and go with that. And I'm just going to close my eyes, and whatever team I land on, I'm just going to scroll through here. Whatever team I land on is the team that I'm going to pick, and then we're just going to build off of whatever that team is. So I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1 now. Alright, so we're going to build off of the Baltimore Ravens. I'm alright with that. That's a decent team, has some holes that need fixing, and I'll show you guys what my logic is in terms of building the team. So I think we'll just stick with what the coach is. I don't think that these settings will matter too much. They should all be on what they should be on. Pre-existing injury I will want to have off just so that I can show you guys the full measure of what we're going to do, and then trade deadline, but trade type is on. That's the most important thing there. And then we put manual for everything else because we want to be in full control. And then I'm going to just take you guys through how I analyze the team, see what I want to do, and everything like that. So first things first, when you see the team, you got 6 players that you need to cut. And this pertains to what is the first thing that I do. And I'm going to run through this really quickly and just kind of talk through why I do this. So I'm going to cut my roster down, cut away players that I don't want immediately. So first off, check, make sure you have 1 kicker and 1 punter. Obviously, this team has 2 kickers, so we're going to get rid of the worst kicker. Justin Tucker's amazing. He's young. He's on a little bit of a big contract, but he's got ridiculous kick power, so I don't see any reason not to make him the starting kicker in a franchise, so you go ahead and get rid of the other guy. Kickers don't have any trade value, so go ahead and release them. And then in terms of the safety position, I'm cool with Tony Jefferson. He's a little bit slow for my liking, so we're going to keep him in as a note in our minds as somebody that could be a trade piece. Anthony Levine, somebody that would be a decent backup safety, maybe a sub-package linebacker. He's also a little bit slow, so we're going to keep him in mind as well as a potential trade piece, being that he's a 78. So both strong safeties, and we'll look to potentially upgrade the strong safety position. Obviously, Eric Weddle ended up on another team, but that's not the purpose of this whole thing. The purpose of this whole thing is just to see what's what, and we'll potentially use Eric Weddle as a trade piece. Deshaun Elliott is a little bit slow, so too slow for my liking, but he's a young player, only 21 years old, and he's a 67 overall, which is a decent overall, so my mindset is I'm going to keep this guy around. Hopefully he'll be a decent backup, and then I'm going to look to move these 3 safeties as trade pieces. And then I go down to the bottom of the roster and I say, okay, I have 2 at each position right now, and I'm not worried about these guys. At a 65 overall, as a 25-year-old, this guy's not going to increase a whole lot, and he doesn't have a whole lot of chance to actually become a starter. So that's my thought on this. He doesn't have a whole lot of room to grow, and he's a very low overall, so we get rid of Bennett Jackson. He has some decent stats. If I wanted to use him as a user, I would maybe take a closer look at him, but I don't in this case. And then Chuck Clark, he is young enough at 23 years old and a 65 that he's essentially a rookie with some decent speed and athletic ability here. So I'd be willing to leave him on as a backup. That's the way that I'm going to look at most of these things, and it's the same thing throughout. So I'm going to compare these things. You only need 5 corners on your roster, so I'm going to go down here and say, look, who's at the bottom of the roster? I got 3 guys that could potentially get cut. This guy's 28 years old and he's only a 68. Get rid of that guy. Get rid of those old guys that are too low to even be a starter because they're not going to progress at all. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 corners. Some guys that are pretty athletic, and then a guy like Brandon Carr that's a little bit older, so I'll be considering trading away him as a trade piece because he's a little bit slower than fits my scheme. I'm looking for 89 to 90 speed or better in a corner. So we already have a few good trade pieces there. Then in terms of the outside linebacker position, I know Terrell Suggs left the team, but that's a good, solid one-year starter, and then you're going to obviously want somebody to back him up. Both of these guys are young and a decent overall. I know Zadarius Smith is 25, so he doesn't have a ton of room to grow, but he's at least a 74, and these guys are a decent enough overall that they can at least be productive backups, so I'm okay leaving both of those guys. Then in terms of middle linebacker, Bam Bradley, nice speed, but I don't think I need that. I don't need that extra linebacker there. I might run a 4-3. I might run a 3-4. Might run a 4-3. But he's 24 and only a 65. He's not going to grow a whole lot, and I have other linebackers ahead of him, and that's how I know he's not going to grow a whole lot, because he's not going to see the field. So I'm going to get rid of these excess guys that I don't need, and then potentially bring in guys later. We're going to keep all rookies that are of a decent overall. Kenny Young is one of those guys. Patrick Onwuasor is another decent linebacker, and then obviously CJ Mosley went to the Jets. He's a good linebacker. We would hang on to him. And this is just, like I said, it's not realistic in terms of like what teams these guys are on. This is just the base Madden roster. This is just me showing you guys how I would do a team. Matthew Judon is a nice outside linebacker at an 80 overall. So we at least have one of the outside linebacker positions locked up for a few years. I'm pretty confident because he's 26 years old. We can keep him around till he's at least 30, and he'll be, in the low 80s, maybe even increase higher than that. And then Tyus Bowser's another young, decent overall linebacker that's a good backup. So not a whole lot to be done at the linebacker spots. In terms of defensive tackle, this team is pretty obviously slated to run a 3-4. We have Michael Pierce at an 87 overall, obviously not moving him. Everybody knows that. Chris Wormley looks like a decent backup, but what I'm looking at for defensive tackle, he's an 83 strength, so that's not going to do for a backup defensive tackle. Anybody that I want in at the 3-4 defensive tackle spot needs to be big and strong, so we're going to try and move him to defensive end. It's not going to let us, I don't think. Maybe. Let's see. Yeah, we'll move him to defensive end and check his overall. His overall is a 73, so that's a decent player at defensive end. Now I'm looking at Brent Urban, similar overall. Obviously Wormley's younger, so if I were down to it, I would want Wormley to start, but I need to cut people. Brent Urban's 27 and only a 74, which would normally be a decent backup, but I'm looking at the fact that he only has 79 strength, and for me, that's not ideal. He only has 76 speed. Physically speaking, he's not going to fit my team. We're going to go ahead and cut him, even though he's a decent overall. So that's kind of how I'm thinking through that. And then in terms of left end, obviously we have Brandon Williams. So I'm looking, okay, I have Willie Henry at a 79. Let's move him over to the other defensive end position, and he'll be a nice starter at the opposite defensive end position. So we'll go ahead and move him over, and then show you guys that now we have the good defensive ends backed up by Chris Wormley. And then we have this Zach Seiler here, who has good strength. So what I'm going to do, I don't particularly want him out here on the edge. He has decent speed, to be honest with you. And it looks like Brandon Williams should really be playing D-tackle because he's only got 59 speed. But he is in a 3-4, so he's a block eater. I would maybe consider flipping Michael Pierce and Brandon Williams, because Brandon Williams is a much slower player, but with a higher strength rating of 96, whereas Michael Pierce has 94 strength but 74 speed. So Michael Pierce can play on the outside a little bit. So I'd be thinking of that in my mind. It's not something I'm going to do right away because it's not imperative, but that's something I'd be thinking of in my mind. In terms of the right tackle position, Orlando Brown is a good young right tackle. We'd be okay with starting him, and he doesn't have any speed, so no need to move him to a guard position or anything like that. And then in terms of the backup offensive lineman, we're going to be looking at their strength rating. So James Hurst here only has 78 strength. That's no good. You need at least 80 strength for offensive linemen across the board. So we're getting rid of this guy, even though he's a 73. This isn't something that a lot of people would do. I know you're going to take a cap hit on it, but he's just not going to play well. He's not going to be worth the money. In terms of right guard here, it looks like Jermaine I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. It's Elum. I don't even know. 92 strength. Nice young guy. Has a little bit of mobility with that 67 speed. I'm pretty cool with leaving him at the backup right guard position, even though he's a low overall. He's really strong, and so he can develop over there. And then in terms of center, I'm looking at this position. Skura only sitting at a 65 overall. Not very good. He's a 25-year-old, so he's not going to progress. I'm actually just going to drop him from the roster. I know that in the edited rosters, he's better than that. And then Bradley Bozeman, I know he's a rookie that's a 65 overall, but 80 strength for me, I don't even like that. So I'm going to go ahead and drop him from the roster as well. And then in terms of center, this guy looks like he might have a chance at a starting position because he's at 92 strength. He would slot in at the center position very well, even though he's a young guy and potentially doesn't have a ton of potential, but he's at 92 strength. He'll move defensive tackles there in the center. And then at left guard, we're looking at Alex Lewis. Certainly not a guy that I think would be a starter because he's 72 and he's 26 years old. So being 26, he doesn't have a whole lot of room to grow. Only a couple years, and he's a 72. So it's not a good ways that he can go. However, he does have 85 strength. He's got 65 speed, so he's a decent guard, and I would like to leave him there as a backup. I think that that's a pretty good idea. And then in order to make things easier for myself, a lot of times what I do is if I don't plan on this guy being a starter, I move him to the right guard spot behind Yonda and leave the left guard spot open as a reminder to myself that I need to fill that position. And then in terms of the left tackle spot, we have Ronnie Stanley, who's a nice young left tackle with good strength, very good left tackle, a lot of potential there, so obviously not moving him. And then Greg Sanat, I don't know, 74 strength is what I'm looking at there. I know he's a rookie, but 74 strength just won't cut it in Madden or in the NFL, so we'll go ahead and release him from the team as well, and that'll free us up to make some moves. In terms of the tight end position, this is something that I know that the Ravens have a lot of strengths at. Some of these guys could be used as trade pieces, so I'm definitely going to consider that. But on every single team, they're going to have the long snapper, and I believe Morgan Cox has got to be that long snapper for the Ravens. I don't know for a fact, but being that he's a 41 overall, I'm pretty confident that he's just the long snapper, and there's no point in actually having this guy for your roster purposes. The long snapper doesn't matter at all in Madden, so just go ahead and cut that guy. And then I have 4 tight ends here. I'd like to keep 3 guys, but I'm going to be looking to move one of them, so I'm going to see, who don't I want? Nick Boyle maybe, because he's slow. I know that he is probably a good run blocker. Yeah, 72 run block. But let's go ahead and look at everybody else's developments here. Andrews has quick, so we certainly want to hang on to him. He's the youngest. Max Williams is at normal, and Hayden Hurst has quick, so we want to hang on to Hurst and Andrews, even though Hurst is a little older. He doesn't have a ton of room to grow, but he's already close to an 80. We'd be looking to move either Max Williams or Nick Boyle. The thing I'm considering here is that both Hurst and Andrews have been proven by looking at the stats here that they're not very good run blockers, 52 and 52, so maybe I want to hang on to a good run blocker, and the better run blocker of the two is Nick Boyle. But Max Williams is also a decent run blocker, so I have to consider that, trading one of these guys. And then in terms of wide receiver, Michael Crabtree, obviously a little overrated here on the roster. That's going to be a trade piece for me because I don't like slow wide receivers. I'd be looking to move him. I'd be looking to hold on to John Brown as a depth wide receiver. Certainly not looking to have him be a starter because he's 28 years old and a 78. He has nowhere to grow, and I want my starters to be able to grow into like stars and superstars. So this guy would be a good 3rd, 4th, 5th wide receiver that has a lot of speed and has a lot of ability as a wide receiver, but just isn't ever going to hit that mark. And likewise, that's a guy like Willie Snead and maybe even Chris Moore. And so then I get to the bottom of the roster and I see guys like Jaleel Scott that have 87 speed. I am definitely going to consider trading him away, but he's a rookie, so I might hang on to him and consider using him as a trade piece. But if you look at a guy like Quincy Adebe, man, why do the Ravens have so many weird names in this team? I'd be looking to potentially cut him or move him to the practice squad. I like the idea of moving him to the practice squad because he does have good physical abilities. So we'll move him to the practice squad. Jordan Lasley, whatever it might be, we'll go ahead and leave him up And then we'll move on to the next position. Fullback, Patrick Ricard, obviously a good fullback. This is a position that a lot of people neglect, so you want to go ahead and look at the fullback spot and make sure you have at least a 70 at this position. Patrick Ricard, 70 speed, 75 acceleration, and then I know that he has good run blocking stats at a 71, and so he'll likewise have good impact blocking and stuff, so that'll be a good guy to block for our halfback. And then at the halfback position, I normally carry 3 running backs, and it looks like that's the way that the Ravens have it. I know Alex Collins got in trouble. I'm going to be looking to trade away and revamp this running back squad. I'm not cutting anybody at the moment, but I'll show you guys what I plan to do at the running back spot when we hit there. Joe Flacco was obviously traded to the Broncos. He would be somebody that I'd be looking to get rid of because he's not necessarily a high enough overall at an old age to consider keeping on at that type of money. But Lamar Jackson is the obvious keeper at quarterback. And then what I like to do backup quarterback wise, I keep one backup quarterback to the starting quarterback. If I figure if I ever get somebody hurt and I need a third quarterback, I'll go out and sign one. That's not a big deal. But what I like to do is I like to model my backup quarterback after my starter, and Robert Griffin's probably as close to Lamar Jackson as you're going to get for a backup. So I'm comfortable with keeping RG3 as the backup and then getting rid of Flacco. And then so based on all this stuff, I'm going to go ahead and look for trades for these guys, and this is a simple and easy way to do it. I know I've made another video on this channel, so go check that out on the trade system and how to work these things, but I'm just going to package a bunch of guys into the trade system and see who wants them. I'm going to scroll through, figure out who wants who, and then make a trade. So the Buccaneers want all 3 of those safeties. They need safety help, obviously. The Cowboys do. So let's go back to the Buccaneers and see what we could get off of them. We obviously need receiver help. They have Mike Evans, they have Deshaun Jackson, Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin would be a nice pickup, a nice young guy that has a lot of potential. We're good at the tight end position. They don't have a halfback that I particularly want. And then we were pretty good at O-line, but we wanted a left guard. Maybe we could package in for like Ali Marpet. And then see if we can pick up a depth safety. I know Justin Evans is decent. Jordan Whitehead is a good athletic player. We'll go ahead and just, I don't mind giving up, higher overall players or anything like that. These guys are younger, so they might not even take this trade, but we'll see. Yeah, so it's actually kind of close. Let's see what they'll... Yeah, that'll take it if I take Whitehead out. And I'm okay with that deal. I'm okay giving up age in order to get guys back. So we obviously traded away all 3 of those safeties, so we need to go back and fill the safety positions now. So we're going to go ahead in. And those players that we had on our team that we marked as available before, we'll go ahead and package them in to see if we can get a nice trade off on them. So everybody that we said was available was Max Williams, Nick Boyle, Crabtree. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep Max Williams. I'm going to get rid of Boyle. And then I'm going to try and package in Michael Crabtree and see if we can make a deal with another team. Hopefully there's a team that needs all 3. Obviously I've seen that there are teams that need, there we go, the Jets need all 3. And we wanted to look for a safety. So obviously they have some safety help on this team. We could go after a good player like a Marcus May or a Jamal Adams. I would say let's see if we can actually get a trade off like this. And then see if we can get some wide receiver help here. Maybe not. Maybe a center. And Brian Winters, they disrespect him. Not a whole lot on this team that we want. I'd be okay, honestly, just trading all 3 of these guys for one, get a nice superstar at safety, and then we have other trade pieces that we're looking to trade away. So we got Joe Flacco. I'm going to look for a trade for him individually. A team that needs him, obviously the Broncos traded for him, so let's see. They're yellow, though. I'd rather trade him to someone that's green. I would think that, like, the Dolphins? The Giants. See, that's what I'm looking for whenever, I'm not looking to be realistic right now. That's not what I'm trying to do for you guys. I'm just trying to get you guys a good idea of what I'm looking for whenever I make these trades. That's interesting that this roster that we're playing on, Has Landon Collins at a 90? I don't know. So what were we looking for? Potentially a halfback. We're not going to take Saquon off of them. That's just too unrealistic. I know that they were looking to package Shepard, so that might be a good pickup for us. And then, do they have an offensive lineman? They have Will Hernandez. They would never part ways with him because he's such a young, good player. And then safety-wise, they obviously were looking to get rid of Landon Collins, but I doubt they would do that deal 1-for-1. So let's look and see what it would take to get Sterling Shepard. We're very close. So then all I do with this one is I go to my picks and I start at like the lowest pick that I have and I offer it to him and see how close it gets me. That got me really close, so a 6. So what I would do is I'd say, okay, that 6 didn't get it, but would the top 6 pick get it? And that gets me slightly closer, but not much. And then we just kind of keep amping up the pick until it gets to a point that they're comfortable with it. So I guess maybe I'll give them this 6th and next year's 7th. That way I'm not giving up a whole ton. And there we go. We got Shepard, and then there we had a couple other trade pieces we wanted to get rid of. So we got our quarterback set. Halfback-wise, we are going to be looking to do some work here at the halfback spot. Wide receivers are now set. I'm comfortable with, having these 3 young guys, four guys. Wide receiver, tight ends are set. O-line, I'm comfortable with making that trade. I don't mind having one hole in the offensive line. Obviously, your team can't be perfect. And then linebacker-wise, I think I'm pretty comfortable with what we got. We could certainly look to trade away some of that depth at linebacker. We're good at corner, and I could potentially use another safety. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to look for a team that really wants a running back. I know the Packers need a running back, per se. Some people may disagree with that. The Raiders could use a running back. The Seahawks. Now, the Seahawks had a good runner this year. I also try and consider some amount of realism in what I'm doing. Alright, so if I went over here... Oh, they got LaShawn McCoy at a 90. I was thinking I might be able to get him for cheap. Kansas City. The Colts. I might be able to get... Let me look at the Falcons. I don't know what it'll take, but if this team would have traded for Tevin Coleman, that would be a super good pickup. And then I know that they have safety depth. DeMonte Kazee is underrated in this. He should probably be higher than that. But, honestly, all of those guys aren't close enough. That's fine. So who really wanted these guys? The Jets did. The Lions. The Lions should have a safety. Yeah, Quandre Diggs or Tavon Wilson. I'm always looking for the younger guy. The younger guy's pretty important. Alright, so then we got our other safety spot addressed. And then we have to look for running back now. So what I'm going to do, since I don't have a whole lot left to offer on the trade block, or on my terms of the trade block, I'm going to look and see. So why is the trade block not up here? I'm not sure. I'm going to look and see what I could do trade-wise to potentially bring in a running back. And running back is one of those positions that you don't have to have a high overall player for them to play well. And I actually have some targets out there, and I've made videos on the channel if you're still watching this video where I show you guys a lot of the hidden gems in this game. So I might go out and just get those hidden gems because you guys will see this team is pretty good. Yeah, I don't have anybody in particular there that I want. So let's go through and just check and see who's out there that I could get. Chris Ivory runs like a monster. Wow, they have Philip Lindsay. This roster has Philip Lindsay at a 65. I don't know what's going on with this. Duke Johnson and an 84. Jeez. Some of these hidden gems might not even be out here because of what roster this is on. But I'll address this halfback position, then I'll show you guys how quickly and easily we were able to kind of just change this franchise around without much issue. Jay Anderson, it's apparently still on. Alright, so here's one that I know we can get for cheap. Jeremy Hill's a very good running back. Only 25 years old. He's very underrated in Madden, but let's see what we can get him for. I assume we can get him for a decent price because he's so low on their depth chart. No, they don't want to part ways with him. Alright, I'm going to actually, just for the sake of it, double check and make sure that trades are on for everybody. Trade type, enable all, because I'm surprised there's no trade block yet. So maybe if I advance a week, it will upload the trade block. I think it's probably acting finicky because of where I started out here. So let's see. Yeah, there we go. Now there's a trade block. Who's out there at halfback? So these are all guys that you'll be able to get for relatively cheap. Like Dante Foreman would be a phenomenal pickup for anybody looking to build their franchise. Like super low overall. I don't know. You want a third round pick for him? I'd be willing to do that. That gets me kind of close. Take a third round pick and a fourth round pick next year. Like, this is a guy that I can build into a star, and I know I can. I have no problems parting ways. You know, here's the thing, guys. You have to understand, you need to have no problem parting ways with draft picks below first and second round, because in Madden, most of the time, those picks are all worthless. You can draft good players at those spots, but for the most part, anything below that is pretty worthless. And then I'm going to go out here and check free agency just to back up some of these spots. So I know that we wanted a halfback, so I'm just going to look for somebody that I know can back up, and Adrian Peterson's a nice veteran backup. I like to have a veteran guy as a backup because these are guys that, you know, your backup running back's not going to get a whole lot of touches. You don't want somebody that needs to develop because they're just not as a backup running back. And then in terms of offensive line, we could probably use some backups if there are any good ones. So what I look for out here are young guys with good strength. So a guy like this, Colby Gossett, 87 strength as a rookie, be a good backup, actually a wonderful backup. Damian Mama, for example. Who else is out here? Not a ton, but certainly quite a few players out here that are decent. Darian Waddle would be actually a decent veteran backup that you could get on the roster for cheap. So don't hesitate to go out here and, you know, look at free agents. This is where I make a lot of my moves defensively. Bo Allen, a good backup D tackle that kind of fills that need. We're good at linebacker, I know that much, and we're good at safety. So now I should be able to go back to my team and show you guys what I did just in a few minutes there. I don't know how long this video has been running, but I usually maintain somewhere between 50 and 53 players on the roster. But in terms of this team, I think that this is a pretty good team, something that a lot of people would be able to use. So in terms of quarterback, obviously we're starting Lamar Jackson at quarterback, great potential there. Then we start the rookie Dante Foreman or Dante Foreman, however you pronounce it, at first on the depth chart there, and he's backed up by a couple veteran running backs. At fullback, no problems here with Patrick Ricard. And then the wide receivers, obviously, the young guys we traded for, Sterling Shepard and Chris Godwin, both have good potential, both have room to grow. And then the third wide receiver spot, it's kind of a toss-up between John Brown and Willie Snead. I would go John Brown because if I was personally using these players, the 93 speed has the edge for me. But Willie Snead has really good acceleration, so he'd be a good slot as well. So I wouldn't hesitate to use either of these guys as the third wide receiver. But as you can see, we've turned this team around pretty quickly. And then you want to put the younger guys up here at the top of the depth chart. Mark Andrews is 21 and Hayden Hurst is 25. I would rather Andrews get the development because within 1 year he'll be a 78, and that'll put him at 22 years old, where Hayden Hurst is 25 at a 78. So Mark Andrews has a potential to be a higher overall player. That's how I'm thinking about it. At the offensive line spot, I'm not going to worry about the backups, but just know that you want to have a separate backup for each position. So we're going to go with Ronnie Stanley, we're going with Marpet, and then I like this center in the middle, and we brought in Colby Gossett, who is a nice, strong, young player, and he'll be a good backup there. We obviously have Yonda and Orlando Brown, so we didn't fiddle with the O-line too much, and we didn't fiddle with the front seven. I would consider moving Brandon Williams and Michael Pierce because of their speed, but defensive line-wise, pretty good here. We didn't have to do a whole lot, and we didn't have to do a whole lot in terms of the linebackers because they have Judon, C.J. Mosley, and Terrell Suggs in this roster. Corner-wise, we got rid of one of the older corners in Brandon Carr, I believe it was, and so we're comfortable going with Jimmy Smith, Marlon Humphrey, and Tavon Young. Jimmy Smith will get up there in age, but by that point, these guys will both be mid-80s, and they'll be strong starting corners, and then I would just be looking for a third corner once Jimmy Smith starts to regress, and I trade him away. So pretty comfortable with that. And then safety-wise, I didn't move the safeties to the correct positions, but Jamal Adams, I would be looking, actually, yeah, Jamal Adams, you can play strong safety, or no, they have him, so we'll play Quandre Diggs at strong safety. And, you know, we solved this team's problems pretty quickly. We got a lot younger across the board, and honestly, I think the overall probably went up of this team. That's how I build a franchise, guys. It's as simple as that. You just have to be willing to trade older players away, know who to trade based on their age and their overall, and get guys that you're comfortable playing with. Make sure you build up a good offensive line, young and strong across the board. Make sure that you have, you know, decent tight ends. Tight ends aren't the most important positions, but wide receiver wise, you're going to want to have young, fast guys that you can use. Quarterback and running back, this is totally up to your personal preference. You know, Lamar Jackson, I doubt anybody can't use him in Madden. I mean, he's just a speed freak. You'll be able to use him one way or another. And then running back wise, there's so many hidden gems in this game. Go check out my video earlier on the channel a while back, a couple weeks ago, where I showed you guys all the hidden gems at running back in this game. You can find a running back in this game that's as low as a 65 that will just be an absolute bruiser. I mean, you go out and get Bo Scarborough, he plays like he's a 99. Like he plays better, in my opinion, than a guy like Todd Gurley does. So you can get a really low overall running back that'll work well for you. You don't have to break the bank for that position, so keep that in mind. And then defensively, we didn't touch much in terms of the front seven. We just moved Willie Henry over. That's something you guys need to be aware of, is that you can move positions within reason. I mean, Willie Henry was going to sit behind Brandon Williams. What's the point in that? Move him over to the other defensive end position and utilize that 79 overall with quick potential. And hopefully he gets better and turns into a star, and you have a good defensive lineup here. And then in terms of the corner positions, we just moved on from our age at all of our secondary positions even, because we had the depth here, and then we were able to trade away some of our other positions to bring in younger guys at safety, like Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs, and we really didn't sacrifice overall. I think, honestly, this team is better than when we started by making those trades. We're a 79 on offense, 85 on defense, as you can see on the right side, and an 81 overall. And that's it. That's how you build the franchise. Obviously, you're going to want to do your training every week and make sure that you get your guys leveled up as quickly as possible. And you're going to want to make sure that you do your scouting whenever it pops up, because you want to be adding to your team every single year. But like I said, don't be afraid to make trades. Do them within reason. If you're going to play realistic like me, make sure that you coordinate with the other people that you're in the league with and make sure that they're okay with the trades you're doing and they consider them realistic as well. And then make sure that you're not afraid to trade away your lower picks in the draft, because first and second round, those are important. You can always get good players with those draft picks, but beyond that, they're not as valuable and it's harder to hit on every single pick. So feel free to trade those away, because they'll be more valuable to the AI than they are to you. A lot of times I find it that rounds 3 through 7, those players don't even make the team, so it's not even worth me picking those positions. I just use those as draft capital or as trade capital. So that's it. That's how I develop a team in Madden. Sorry, not develop a team, but build a team in Madden. You know, going through doing trades, getting rid of age and bringing in youth, because you want to bring in guys that have room to grow. Anywhere between the 20 to 25-year range, 25-year-old range, those are players that still have room to grow. Once they hit 26, their window is extremely limited. Players stop growing around 27, 28 years old, and then once they hit 29, they're at their peak. Once they hit 30, they'll regress. And beyond that, they regress harder and harder every year. So you want to keep that in mind. That's kind of the progression scale. So you want to keep that in mind when you're considering who to cut, you know, who to sign, who to trade for, and everything like that. So hopefully this helped you guys out. Hopefully it gives you a little peek into the mind of Jake Reid and how he builds Madden teams. At least on Madden 19, I know a lot of this will change on Madden 20 since a lot of information has come out recently on some of the changes that they've made for Madden 20. But hopefully this helps you guys out a little bit one way or another. And I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See ya.